Today's Frugal Friday video is for the Larkspur tote bag from Calla. This is a free pattern. You can find it on her website and it is a really nice size tote and I'm so excited to make it. For my exterior, I'm using Jen's fabrics, including this panel. For my interior, I'm just using a fabric that was on my shelf, not sure where it came from. I have webbing from the Emporium. I'm using a cork tag on the outside and I'm using two woven labels, one on the outside and one on the inside. My fabric for the exterior is a cotton canvas. For the interior is a cotton woven. Everything except some of the lining pocket pieces has a layer of Royal Pixie Light. And for my exterior pieces, the main panels and my gusset pieces, I added a layer of fusible foam just to give this a little more structure. The pattern calls for fusible fleece, but I like foam better. In my opinion, it just feels a little bit stronger and sturdier. So we know this will be a great bag for storing things, carrying groceries, whenever you're running errands, or even just traveling on a trip. I'm pretty much following the pattern exactly. I am having a slip pocket on the front. My slip pocket will be made with this panel. I'm having a zipper pocket on the inside as well as a slip pocket on the inside. This pattern isn't a hard one to cut out and I feel like it's going to be one that I'm going to sew a lot of because it's going to come together really quick and look super cute. So let's go ahead and get started sewing. The way I'm going to get this pattern started is by making slip pockets. We have one slip pocket for the exterior, one slip pocket for the lining. They are going to be made different ways because they are going to be attached to the bag in different ways. For the slip pocket on the exterior, it needs to be a freestanding slip pocket. That means whenever I attach it to the bag, all the edges have to be finished. For the lining slip pocket, all of these edges are going to be caught in the seam allowance of the bag, so I don't need to finish the edges on them. For this lining slip pocket, all I'm going to do is take these two pieces, place them right sides together, making sure everything matches up, and then just sew across the top. Then we'll turn it and top stitch. That's all I have to do on that one. But for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm still going to place the pieces right sides together. But after I have these two pieces, the exterior and the lining, right sides together, I'm going to sew all around and just leave an opening to turn this slip pocket right sides out. Pretty sure the pattern tells me to leave the opening at the top, but I don't want to do that. I want this top to look as nice as possible, so I'm actually going to leave the opening here at the bottom. I know that I could leave a bigger opening at the top, but I trust that I can turn this slip pocket, since there's no real interfacing like a fleece or a foam on it, through an opening here at the bottom. Let's go ahead and start sewing with the exterior slip pocket. I'm going to use the seam allowance given the pattern. I'm going to start sewing this a little before my curve, and I'm going to back stitch when I start and stop. I'm going to use the full seam allowance given in the pattern, and I'm just going to slowly make my way around this edge all the way to the top. So across the top, down the other side, and then go maybe an inch or so here at this curve, and then I'll back stitch, and that will leave that perfect opening for me to turn. Here's how the exterior slip pocket looks. The back stitching is here when I start and stop. Here's my opening. I'm going to get a pair of my pinking shears and I'm going to trim up my seam allowance all around here where I sewed. I'm not going to trim the seam allowance through this area here. We're going to leave this part intact. I'm going to use pinking shears just because I want to make for sure that the curves and the edges look really good, because this is a feature focus on this pattern. I'll do my cutting off camera, but before I go, we're going to go ahead and sew the lining slip pocket. On this one, we are just going to sew across the top with the seam allowance given the pattern. We're still going to back stitch when we start and stop. Now that I have this slip pocket sewn right sides together just along the top, I am just going to finger press my seam allowance open, and then I am going to roll the seams so that I'm just seeing my exterior from the exterior, not any of the lining. You can take this over to the ironing board if you want to. I'm just going to add a few clips here to kind of keep that crease so I can top stitch all along this edge. Now that I've rolled that seam allowance so that the only thing I can see from my exterior is the exterior, I don't see any of the lining poking through, I'm just going to go ahead and top stitch across this edge about 1/8 of an inch away. This is how the top stitch pocket for the interior looks. You don't need to baste around these edges, but if it makes you more comfortable, you can. We're going to go ahead and grab out our lining piece to attach this pocket to the interior main panel piece. Here's my lining main panel piece. Like I said, this is a cotton woven. I do have that layer of Royal Pixie Light on the back to help with some more stability with this piece. I also used the pattern piece to mark the placement for my snap, and I added a magnetic snap on this piece and then on the other lining piece. On the bottom of this piece is where we are going to lay the slip pocket that we just made onto it. We should be able to match up the sides and the bottom pretty easily here. Smooth it flat. You can clip it in the place you want if you want, and then just baste all around the sides and the bottom. Here's my slip pocket basted into place. I didn't want to waste any interfacing on a slip pocket piece, so I didn't interface it. It's a large slip pocket too. If I don't sew down the middle to separate this, there's going to be a lot of gaping or opening on this pocket, and it just wouldn't look good. I'm definitely going to sew a line down the middle to kind of help prevent that. I'm just going to do it the easy route. I'm going to simply fold this right sides together and do a memory crease. I'm going to push very firm here to kind of make that memory crease, and then I'm just going to open up and sew down that line. I'll start sewing at the bottom and then go towards the middle, so that way it'll have the best look. Sometimes when you start sewing here and go down, you'll get a pucker at the bottom. If you can't see your line clearly, you could always do chalk, or you can just not worry about it and just sew a line and be okay with it. This slip pocket is so big, you could even divide it into thirds if you wanted to, but having this division in the middle will do what I want it to do, and to have a neat looking slip pocket without it flapping open whenever we look inside the bag. This side of the lining is completely done. On the other side, we'll do the zip pocket, but before we do that, let's pull out that exterior slip pocket and get it finished. Here is my exterior slip pocket piece. You can see that I used the pinking shears to trim all around the edges, but I did not trim this opening. I'm going to now use this opening to turn this right sides out. Here's how my slip pocket looks. I'm going to take the time to roll these seams flat and add some clips here just along the top for right now. When I'm doing my top stitching, I'm going to go across here just like I did on the other slip pocket, just an 1/8 of an inch away. You can see it looks very puffy still, so I definitely need to make sure I have everything laying flat before I try to add this to my main panel. If not, it just won't look good. So I want to take the time to push everything out. I'll put my fingers here in the bottom and pull to kind of close up that opening. So I'm going to go off camera, iron everything flat, and when I come back, we will attach this to the main front exterior panel. I have my slip pocket pressed flat. I have it centered on this exterior main panel piece, and I also have it down according to the pattern measurements as to how far down it should go. I have a woven label just slipped here on the side, nothing sewn, I just have it laying there. So I'm going to start sewing at this side, and I'm going to use an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to attach this pocket to this main panel. I'll start here at the top, back stitch, and when I start going down and go around this curve, it'll catch this woven tag just for a little something extra. I'll continue to sew all the way around and then back stitch when I come up the other side. I don't have any tape or anything in place, but you could add double-sided tape, you could add pins, but I'm just going to kind of hold my hand here to hold it flat, and hopefully nothing will move and I won't have too much shifting. I have this slip pocket attached. It looks great. I love adding a woven label here on the side. I just think it's a really cute way to dress up a bag. And this slip pocket is huge. It could easily fit several water bottles, wallet, cell phone. I mean, this is a really big slip pocket. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the webbing to the top. The back of my main panel, only thing I'm adding on it is a cork tag kind of centered here as a feature focus. And so I don't have to do anything on the back of it except add the webbing there too. So I'm taking out my webbing. I'm using 1-inch webbing. If you decided to make your strap out of a cotton woven material, you would just cut it according to the pattern measurements and then do a 4-way fold. Whenever you place the webbing on here, make sure you take your short end and match it up here in the center of this top piece. Add a clip there to hold it in place. So the way you check to make for sure it's not twisted is you just kind of push it down and make sure it is even and that it kind of folds up on itself. You should be able to make it have a right angle here. That's how you know it's not twisted. We're just going to baste across these two edges to attach the webbing, and then we'll attach the webbing on the back. And if you wanted to add another slip pocket on your back, you could, but like I said, I'm not going to. I'm just having my cork label on the back of mine. Here is how my front exterior piece looks. I'll add the webbing to the back main panel off camera, but now it's time to work on that last pocket we have, which is going to be the zipper pocket for the interior. I am making my zipper pocket a little bit different than the way the pattern says. You can choose to follow the pattern directions exactly, or you can make yours on mine. In some ways, my zipper pocket's a little fancier, and in other ways, it's not as fancy as she has it. For example, one thing she does is she makes sure to cut these two zipper pocket lining pieces different sizes so they meet up perfectly after you sew the zipper pocket together. Hers match up perfectly. Mine will not. Mine will have to be trimmed off. Not a big deal, but it's just those little details. Also, she folds up the edges of her zipper pocket so it has a really nice neat finish at the end. I won't do that, but you will see that either way is functional. It's just kind of how you're feeling at the moment. So to make this zipper pocket, I do have a piece of number 5 zipper tape, 1 zipper pull. I'm using this really big zipper pull for a reason. This is going to be a gift for my daughter, and so I thought this would be a great bag for her to take to the grocery store, or if she's out going to the library, running errands, whatever. And this big zipper pull will be on the inside of the bag, and she could easily clip her keys using a carabiner to hook on here. So when she's going to her house late at night, if she's been out and she's trying to get in there, she can easily grab her keys, or if she wants to have anything else clipped on there, it won't be lost in the bottom of her bag and she'll have to spend time outside in the dark looking for it. So it's just one of those mom things that might help me worry a little bit less with my daughter living on her own. For the zipper pocket lining pieces, I just rough cut 2 pieces that was left over from this print. I didn't measure. You can see they're not even. I'm not worried about it because I feel like it'll work out fine in the end, and I'll trim it up as I need to. The pattern does give you the proper measurements for the zipper pocket lining pieces if you want to be really precise. I do not have any interfacing on these 2 pieces. I'm just leaving them uninterfaced. I also have the magnetic snap here at the top. Like I mentioned, I got that measurement directly from the pattern piece. I'm choosing to use a zipper overlay with my zipper pocket for the lining. I feel like in a lot of ways, having a zipper overlay is an easier way to get a really nice finish on a zipper pocket. It does require you to cut out an extra piece here and do a little extra sewing, but I do feel like it's pretty easy to make one. When you're going to make a zipper overlay, the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that either you grab vinyl that is not stretchy, no stretch at all, or if it does have a stretch, go ahead and interface it. You could interface it with a Decaville Light, a Royal Pixie Heavy, whatever you want to remove that stretch. Because if it has stretch when you're sewing it, it'll just keep stretching and look really ugly. So try your best to use a vinyl non-fraying material or any other non-fraying material that doesn't have stretch to it. And then the way I make my overlays is I got this ruler from mormino.com years ago. This is how I make my zipper pockets too, but it is perfect for making a zipper overlay. You just place it on your vinyl, trace around there, cut it out, and you have this zipper overlay. It's great for scraps or whatever you have for pieces of vinyl. This ruler has been so good. She has a lot of other cuter ones. This was her first version of it, and I grabbed it as soon as I saw it, and I use it so much. Once I have this vinyl overlay cut out, I added a little bit of glue on the sides and then a little bit of glue here on the bottom and slipped another woven tag here at the bottom. When I added the glue, I made sure just a little bit on the edge because I need to cut around the excess. So you can see a lot of it is not glued down. It is free and not attached. I just wanted to glue down just a little bit on the sides and here with the woven tag so that I can stitch it easily. The pattern tells you how far down to place it, but really it's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to center it and you don't want it too close to your magnet. Pretty easy going. I went back and forth about making a zipper pocket because I don't usually use zipper pockets in bags, but this is how this bag is turned through this zipper pocket. I could have still chose to turn it through the lining. I would have probably, instead of leaving the opening at the bottom, I would have chose to leave the opening on the side. So if you're in a hurry and you don't feel like adding a zipper pocket, or you really are like me and hate zipper pockets on the inside in bags, You can leave an opening here and that would be fine as well. So now that I've talked about everything we're using to make this zipper pocket, the first thing I'll do is I'm going to sew all along the outside perimeter of this zipper overlay piece, just 1/8 of an inch away from the raw edge. After you have sewn around the perimeter of this overlay, what we're going to do is we're going to trim away the extra fabric on the inside. The way I'm going to get that started is I'm just going to fold this wrong sides together, just fold it in half and make a snip in the middle. Then I will come to the back side and use my scissors to start opening up that hole. I'm going to make for sure I'm getting my scissors in between that vinyl overlay and this fabric. We do not want to cut the overlay. You'd be very upset with yourself. I'm going to go ahead and cut all the way around here, giving myself about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch of fabric away from that stitch line. Your main objective with removing that fabric is making sure the opening is clear. You don't have to go as close to your stitch line as I did, but you do want to make for sure you have the fabric removed from that opening. We're going to set this piece aside, and now we're going to pull out our zipper tape and those 2 lining pieces. I'm doing this the way I always do it. I don't even follow pattern directions anymore just because I like my method and it works so easy for me. I take one of my lining pieces, place it right sides up, take my zipper tape, place it on top right sides up so that we are looking at the right side of both the lining and our zipper tape, and I'm just going to sew this in place. I'm going to sew it with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I'll start at one end back stitch and then go all the way to the other end. Once you have the zipper tape sewn to this lining piece, what you're going to do is pick up your zipper tape and let your lining fall down and then lay the zipper tape down, so you should be looking at the wrong side of the lining and the right side of your zipper tape. Now what we're going to do is we're going to tack this edge of the zipper tape down to the lining. This isn't necessary, but whenever we put it underneath this overlay, it's just going to help it to lay better and be a little bit easier to sew. So now what I'm going to do is just sew 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the zipper tape. Here's how the first side looks. Let's repeat those same steps for the other piece. Here is my lining right sides up. I'm going to take the zipper, once again, I'm going to lay it on top right sides up. This edge of the zipper tape needs to be in line with this edge of the lining, but we also need to make for sure that the sides match up. We don't want any overhang here because we want it to all be even. Once we have the 2 edges matched up and our sides matched up, we're going to go ahead and sew this side of the zipper tape on with that same 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. If you remember, I said I rough cut this piece, so that is why mine is off here. If you cut yours the same size, you wouldn't have any overhang on yours. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pick up this piece of the lining, it's just like we did with the other one, and flip it so that we're looking at the wrong side of the lining and the right side of the zipper tape. This free edge now needs to be tacked down to this side of our lining. I'll do that stitching once again 1/8 of an inch away. You can see at this point, this is the way the zipper pocket would look. To give yourself a common sense check, just imagine opening your zipper. What would you see? The pretty side of your fabric. So now we're ready to add this to the lining piece, but we got to add our zipper pull on first. Now that I have my zipper pull on, I'm going to slide my lining over, and I want to have these teeth in the middle of this box. If you like to use double-sided tape, you could definitely use it here. I hate using double-sided tape, so I'm not going to, but just know that that is an option if that makes your sewing more enjoyable. I do want to make for sure that I have this lining and zipper tape centered in this box. I don't want to risk it being too short on this side. So center it on there, and then we'll start sewing around. Whenever I am looking at my box, I want to see an even amount of zipper tape on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and move my zipper pull down to the end. I'll start sewing here, go all the way around, just 1/8 of an inch away from this opening. When I get to this area, I'll move my zipper pull back. I'm going to slowly slide this over to my machine. As you know, I don't have anything on here, so no zipper tape, so I just have to be a little bit careful when sliding. When I get it back to my machine, I'll make sure that I center those teeth again. If I see anything shifting while I'm sewing, I'll just shift it around. You can choose to leave your threads long here or backstitch, whichever is your preference. I forgot forgot to mention, but you definitely wanted to leave your linings open and flat so that you could sew around here without catching your pocket any. Once you have this attached, let's go ahead and flip it over so we're looking at the wrong side of the lining, but the right sides of our lining pockets. And this is the step where I told you that the designer has it measured so you won't have any overhang, but I will. When I pull this piece down, since it's going a further distance, it'll be shorter than this piece, so I'll need to trim some off. It's not a big deal, but if that bothers you, definitely follow the pattern measurements. So now I have my lining pieces right sides together. I personally like to sew as close as I can to the opening here, so I will sew down this side, and then I will go just a little bit over here to lock in this bottom part, and then I'll break my stitches. I'll come over this other side, sew a little bit here, and then go up this side the same way. If you're worried like, gosh, it's gonna be really hard to turn the bag through this opening, you don't have to close up this bottom at all. You can leave it completely open and just sew down the sides. Your choice on that. I'm gonna go ahead and trim this up now, just so I can make for sure I get an even sew across here. It's probably still not even, but it's okay. So now that I have this situated the way I want, I'm gonna add a few clips, and then I'm actually gonna flip this back over and sew it from looking at the correct side of the lining. It'll just make it easier. So this is clipped into place. Let's flip it back over. Make sure your lining is laying down flat, so you can see it's down here. Pull back one side, and that will kind of let me get closer to this side piece. So you can see I have a lot of extra over here that I'll have to trim off. Back stitch and then go all the way down. And then I am going to just pivot and come over just a few stitches to kind of help lock in this bottom. It's not necessary though. I'm going to repeat those same steps for this other side. Now that I have the lining pocket sewn, I'm going to trim up my extra, but I won't trim anything there at the opening. At this point, we should have our linings and our exteriors completely done. Now it's time to work on the gusset for this bag. We will have 2 exterior gussets and 2 lining gussets. On the exterior gussets, I do have the foam. On the lining gussets, I just have the Royal Pixie Light. You can see that the top is shorter in width than the bottom. What we're going to do is we're going to sew these 2 pieces for the exterior right sides together at the bottom, and then the same for the lining. So I'll match up the bottoms, and then I'll just sew across with the seam allowance given the pattern. I'm going to do the same thing for the linings. Once we have these pieces sewn together, what I'm going to do is I'm going to butterfly the seams and top stitch down each side. This will give us that flat base. So I'm going to open the seams and then top stitch down both sides. You can actually top stitch from either the right side or the wrong side of the materials. If you do it from the right side, just make for sure you go underneath and keep the seams open the whole time. I'm just going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch down both sides of this seam. There's me top stitching down the first. I'm going to come across and go back down the other side. This is how the top stitching looks. I'm going to do the lining top stitching off camera. While I'm off camera, I'm going to take this gusset and clip it right sides together with my front main panel. I'll come back to show you how it looks after I have this gusset clipped on that front main panel. I have the gusset clipped right sides together with my exterior front panel. I started clipping it on by clipping both of the top side pieces and having them clipped first. Then I started clipping down the sides along the straight edge. I did not clip the corners until I had both of the long straight edges clipped, and then I matched up the middle, and then I finished clipping and easing around the curves. My gusset fit perfectly, but if yours does not, whether the gusset is too small or too big, you can make snips in the curves to kind of help ease it around. So if your gusset's too small, make some snips in the gusset to ease it around. If the gusset's too big, make some snips in your main panel around that curve to help it fit. Either way, it should fit decently close. And then now what you're going to do is you're just going to sew with the full seam allowance. I'm going to have to fold my bag a little oddly because my camera is right here and I don't have room to lay it flat. When I start sewing here at the top, I'll do a back stitch to get started using that full seam allowance given in the pattern. When you come to this corner, go ahead and smash down your gusset so it can kind of flare out. If you're having trouble with it slipping, you can just try to pull it with your fingers, or you can get your hemostats out to help it adjust, but you really want to try your best to keep these two pieces in line. So I'm going to pull them together and then flatten it down, sewing slowly and going around this curve. I'm not sewing over any puckers. Even though you see this pucker here, I'm not sewing over it. It's okay if the fabric is puckered as long as you don't sew over one of them. I'm just mushing that in so I can get these to line up. I don't have my hemostats beside me because I was using them on a different project, or I would just grab them out. Almost out of this curve. And I kept everything decently lined, so mine should look fine. And I'm going to continue on to get to the other curve. Once you have the gussets sewn together, just check to make for sure you caught everything and that you don't have any big puckers or pleats and that everything looks good. Once you're satisfied with the way it looks, you're going to repeat that same process to attach the back exterior panel to this side of the gusset, and then you're going to do the exact same thing with the lining. We are not leaving an opening in the lining because we have the zipper pocket with the opening, so I'm going to sew my lining gusset onto the lining main panels exactly the same. I'll come back after I have that done, and then we'll just go ahead and finish up this bag. I'm really loving this tote, and I think this one's going to be a staple for me. We are down to the final steps. So I have my exterior wrong sides out. I have my lining right sides out, and I just put my lining inside there. You can see here's the zipper pocket, and I clipped all the way around the top. What we're going to do now is we're going to sew the entire perimeter around the top to connect the exterior and the lining. I'm going to birth the bag through the zipper pocket when I'm done, but we're going to sew everything first. The handles are tucked in there, everything's matched up. It fit perfectly, I had no problems, but if you have any problems, just kind of try to ease it in. But if you sewed with the correct seam allowance, cut everything properly, it should fit perfectly. So I'm going to sew this with the full seam allowance, and then I'll probably trim down the seam allowance by about half just to kind of help to not have too much of the bulk in the seams. I'm going to start sewing right here on this curve, and then I'll just continue to sew all the way around here. I sewed around the entire perimeter at the top of this bag to connect the exterior and the lining. It's not hard to sew, but you do have curves, you have pivots. It's at an awkward angle, but it isn't that hard. Just take your time so you keep your correct seam allowance. Now what I need to do is I need to trim down all my seams. I'm going to go off camera to trim everything down just so I'm not having to make you watch all that. I'm going to go ahead and turn my bag, and so when we come back we will look at the bag and we will close up the opening and top stitch around the top, and then we'll be done. I trimmed up my seams and I turned the bag right sides out. I still have the lining out because I need to close up this zipper pocket. I'll be honest, it was tricky to birth the bag through the zipper pocket just because I have foam. If you had fleece, it would be easier, but I like the way foam feels, so I'd probably do my next one with foam, but I would leave my opening here on the side instead of in a zipper pocket. Probably wouldn't even make a zipper pocket because I'm not big on zipper pockets in bags. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and close this up before I top stitch. That's a little risky, but I'm really not too worried about it because I can take the time to roll up the seams and should be able to still get a decent stitch even though I have this closed. I did take the time to use my stiletto to poke out these corners kind of decently since it's kind of a tricky small spot there. I did take the time to do all 4 of those corners that way. Also, as a side note, I was thinking about using 1.5 inch wide webbing, and you would just have to be careful if you did and go with the smaller seam allowance right here so it didn't catch in that seam. So that's something I wanted to mention also. So I'm just going to start sewing 1/8 of an inch away, making sure I back stitch when I start and stop, go all the way across here, and then I will put this pocket inside and tuck my lining inside and then start rolling out these seams so I can top stitch all around. Here on the side it's a little bit bulky, so I'm going to use my big clips to clip this seam to kind of compress it so that I can get a good top stitch on this area. And probably go ahead and do that for all the seams. This one's not as bad as that one. I must have had this one smoothed out a little better, and this one might not have, like I tried to butterfly the seams, but this one might not have butterflied perfectly or maybe shifted while I was sewing it. Let me go around and do that with the other seams. I'm going to go ahead and turn this bag inside out so I can top stitch on my exterior. So if you have the time, go ahead and press out the seams or roll them or clip them or whatever. But I'm just going to finger press and make for sure that I'm not seeing any of my lining from my exterior side, and start top stitching here and go just 1/8 of an inch away from the seams all the way around the top only of this bag. When you come to the handles, have your handle going up and get up to the point where you need to pivot across, and make for sure that the handle is going up and laying flat, and sew across there. I finished top stitching all around. I'm going to turn this bag right sides out, and I'm going to change my camera angle, and just so we can look at it and see how beautiful it looks. It is so hard to get all of this bag in my camera frame because it is so big. This is really a much bigger bag than I anticipated. The front pocket alone, you can see how big that is. It's just great. It's a great size bag. This is going to be moved up on my scale of favorite bags because we don't have a lot of pieces to cut out. So this is awesome. So huge slip pocket. Look inside how open this is. We have our zipper pocket on one side with the overlay and tag. We have the slip pocket on the other side. Now it's gaping down right now, but that's because I have it turned like this. If we're looking at it from this way, it's going to lay flat. On the back, all I have is just a tag for decoration. So I have 2 slip pockets and 1 zipper pocket. I'm going to do some shaping with the bag for sure, kind of pushing out the corners. So what I'll do is I'll add clips all along these curves and kind of let it set overnight so it'll have a really nice shape. Honestly, if I would have made this bag with the fleece, I don't think it would have set up. I think it would have been floppy. I might try one with fleece just to see. Maybe if you did fleece with quilting it would, but honestly the foam, I love foam and bag. I love the way the handles look, super cute. Such a fun pattern. This is the first time I made this pattern and I'm so glad I did. I think it's a great pattern. I think it's a great sew. Very useful, very beneficial. Not like a bag that you can't carry a lot of things with. This would be a great overnight bag, weekend bag, grocery store, running errands, library bag. So many uses for this. So thank you for watching another tutorial of mine. This is a free pattern from Blue Calla. This is the Larkspur. I'm going to leave a link for how you can get this pattern for free in my description. My fabrics are all from Jen's Fabric. These prints and many others are on pre-order right now. I am an affiliate with Jen, so I have a rep code. What that means is that if you use my code Beth10, you save 10% on your fabrics that you order, and then I get 10% in credit to buy more fabrics with. I will leave that information in my description also. Once again, thank you for watching another Frugal Friday video of mine. I really appreciate everyone watching, and I hope today, no matter what you do, you have a Frugal Friday and a wonderful day. Thanks so much.